Hello everybody, this is Howard the Teaserking coming to you with week 12 of college football. Look at the last 2 weeks. 12-0 in week 10, 11-1 in week 11. Just 23-1 and just as deadly in the pros. My pro last week was 9-1 and 5-1 the week before, so I'm pretty much in focus as far as seeing the teams, getting away from the surprise team who comes up. I'm trying to not do as many over-unders because those seem to be being misjudged or bad point spreads. You think a game's an over, and then they, the biggest problem I'm seeing in college is like they'll have two teams playing, and the over-under is like 38, and you're like, seriously? That's a bit low for college, but it's an under game, and it almost seems to me Vegas just doesn't want any action. Look at this week. Ohio State 52-53 over Rutgers. They don't want action. I mean, if they did, they'd make it in the 40s, and you'd get some Rutgers play here. You've killed all the Ohio State action. I mean, I'm sure there's a few people betting on them, but it's almost like they don't want action. You make the point to get equal action. They're not doing it because I'm not touching it. I just look at the spread; it's too high. Make it in the 40s to get my action. It's no guarantee they're going to win by 70. If there is, then let's all bet Ohio State and lay 70. It's really pathetic, the lines, and they move so quickly. It doesn't make sense either. There's not that much action going on Monday to move a line from 8 to 10. I mean, what are you joking with me? So Vegas is just really clueless what they're doing. If they'd listen to my lines, they'd be much more profitable because I could steer them away from bad lines. So last week, the key games that I played in multiple teasers: Louisiana Lafayette, LSU, I was all over them. Illinois, Minnesota I had, San Jose State. I was going to play Air Force and the game got moved. It was like, seriously, I couldn't believe that one. So those were my big ones, and then my big pros were San Diego and Seattle. That was my lock, which I love when the dog takes the lead, like Seattle Monday night. I got Seattle in 12.5, 13, and they're winning 21-10. I mean, game's over in the third quarter. I love that. I hate when you're down 20 and then they got to score to backdoor it, but here you can just lay back, and this is what I'm saying. Russell Wilson, man, that's what you look for, is the Russell Wilsons. That's who you bet on, and he comes through for you. But you can only bet on him as a dog. When they're home favorites, they're terrible for some reason. It's really strange. Although they are playing tough teams at home, like New Orleans, Baltimore, and the Rams, so they're not getting the easy games at home yet. Anyway, so let's go to college. What you have now is a lot of teams trying to get bowl eligible, playing for the conference championship. So as you get down to the final couple of weeks, the teams, like, let's look at LSU. They can't afford a loss, right? They beat Alabama. Will they be flat this week? I doubt it. I don't see this team being flat at all. But they know they have to keep winning, and it's just a few more weeks, and then, the championship games coming in. So you get the best effort from the best teams, which is usually a good formula. So you get a lot of winners. You get a lot of strength. Like, you're not going to get the letdown, right? LSU's not going to get upset by Ole Miss. It's not going to have Ohio State's not getting upset by Rutgers or Oregon losing to UCLA. It's not now. The only teams where you face the upset are really strong defensive teams who just, can control it, maybe like a Wisconsin or an Alabama. Well, they're not going to be the dogs, but real strong deep, let me see, like Utah, Wisconsin, San Diego State maybe, Wyoming, Michigan even. These teams are very strong. Like Michigan's a good example. they're maybe getting their act together, and they got a real good defense, so they could upset a better team. That type of team with the real strong defense. But let's get to this week's game. I got Minnesota and Iowa looked at. And I got Iowa laying 3, over under 45. Well, let's break the game down and see which way do we want to go. So Minnesota, 37 points a game. And you don't think they're a big offensive team, but they looked good against Penn State last week, and they only give up 20. They're an A team. Tanner Morgan, good quarterback. And they're well balanced. They throw for 238. They run for 195, 433. Going against Iowa, who's 24 offensive points, and they give up only 11. Nate Stanley's a good quarterback. Excuse me, I apologize. And they throw for 240 a game, but only run for 139. Although they did score on Wisconsin. So when you look at these averages, sometimes you have to take them with a grain of salt, because college, they can play these weak teams. So I look at last week, Minnesota playing a Penn State who was giving up like 8-9 points a game, and they put up a 30 on them. So the logic is, if Minnesota can put up a 30 on a real tight defensive Penn State, they can put up a 30 on Iowa. And Wisconsin beat them 24-22. So they put up 20 on them. So Iowa doesn't have that good of a defense, but it is a low defense. Again, it's just who they played. They didn't play in Ohio State, and they really they didn't play Penn State. Or maybe they did. I don't think so. Well, maybe they did. I think the game was at Penn State if they played them. But anyway, they did play Wisconsin 24-22. So Wisconsin scored on them. I give them credit for scoring 22 on them. Let's look at the quarterbacks. Minnesota and Iowa. Minnesota, they're right next to each other. Nate Stanley, 60% completion, 239 yards a game, 12 touchdowns, 5 picks, sacked 19 times. Tanner Morgan, 9 games, 67% completion versus 60, 233 a game, so he's hitting a much higher percent, and he's only 6 yards less. So it's like, well, it's 60% because he's throwing long passes, and that's why his yards are there. But that's not the case here. Tanner Morgan 233, but his yards per attempt he's throwing for 11 yards per attempt. The Iowa guy only 7.4, so it should be the other way around, because Tanner Morgan's 67%. You think, well, he's throwing these little dump offs. Well, he's not. Then you look at the touchdowns. He's 21 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. So here you have a much more productive, and he doesn't throw a lot of interceptions, Tanner Morgan, versus Nate Stanley, 12-5. Then let's get to the numbers. So in 2019, just this year, Minnesota's 7-1 against the number. Hasn't been a road dog, but they are 3-0 as a road favorite, which is very strong. Iowa. Now Iowa's a beautiful team against the number. They're 3-1 as a home favorite, 8-1 overall, 2-2 against as a home favorite. And I look at it as a similar game to Iowa State. Iowa State is a very good team. That game ended 19-18, Iowa winning on the last second. I think it was the last second field goal by Iowa to win it. Let's go back to 1918. Iowa 6-3 is a home favorite, 17-4 overall, because they're 10-0 on the road. But again, this game's at home, and they're 5-4 against as the home favorite. So they don't, 6-3, 5-4. There's not a lot there. Minnesota, now they're 3-2 as a road dog, 2-3 against. See, they're really coming into their own this year. So to use 18 stats, they're good at home, 9-3, on the road 6-3. So there's not a lot in 18, but this year they're very strong, and that's when it's happening. and you can't. 17, they're a pretty bad team. Iowa 10-4 is a home favorite. So Iowa does well at home, but don't I don't look at this game like that. Of course, Minnesota needs it. They're undefeated. Going back to my early statement, they're not going to let down after beating a good Penn State team. However, the fact they beat a good Penn State team, now the game was in Minnesota, they were a home dog, but here they're still a dog, they're still a road dog, they can still use that. I think their quarterback showed a tremendous poise in the big game and puts up 30 points. And now you're going on the road to Iowa. And, it's a little tougher place, but I think this game, I think Minnesota's a little bit better here now that you got to see them against Penn State. They're well balanced, and I don't think Iowa is going to blow them out, let's say. You got a very, what I call a live dog, almost a weak favorite. I think Minnesota's the better team here. Now you've got a little info. They beat Penn State. Now here's where you get all your info: is how are they on the road against a good defensive team. I think this game will be fairly low scoring in the 20s. The over/under here is 45. So 1 point you could do is under 51. Iowa, Wisconsin was 24-22, was 46. I think it'll get into the 20s. I don't see Iowa blowing them out. I don't think Minnesota will be flat. I think now they have confidence. We beat Penn State. We're undefeated. Let's keep it going. They've done well on the road. 3-0 is a road favorite. So I like their coach. I like their quarterback. I think the quarterbacks are pretty equal, maybe a little edge to Minnesota's. Their defense, pretty equal. Maybe a little edge to Iowa, but I like the secondary of Minnesota, and Winfield's kid looked like Winfield. So I'm surprised he didn't go to Ohio State, but I guess his dad played pro ball at Minnesota, and he probably stayed there. So still surprising. They probably couldn't. They probably didn't pay him enough to go play at Ohio State. So in this game, I'm going to take Minnesota plus the 9 in this game. I just feel it's even. It's an even game. Take the dog, and the dog's the better team in this situation. I don't see Iowa blowing them out. Can they win by 10? Maybe. It gets late and they get a pick six or something. Is the only way they're going to win by more than 10. But in this situation, I think you have the better team. Will they be spent from beating Penn State? And I just see, like Oklahoma, Texas, or some of these other games, USC, UCLA, the big rivalry games, the week, sometimes like they've been changing it where the week after they got a game. I've noticed UCLA, USC, and the week after they're playing, USC's playing Stanford or something. You're like, well, what is this supposed to be the last game? But I do notice if you do win them, you're kind of more confident, and then you get to you go, okay, we got another opponent, but we're really good. Look at us go. And I think that's the point with Minnesota here. I don't see the coach letting them down, and they got good quarterback, good running backs, and Iowa's defense is good, but here you're letting them. Wisconsin puts up 20, and I don't like Wisconsin's quarterback at all, and I just see this being this type of game. The only fact is the game is in Iowa. Minnesota does travel well, it looks like, and they're having a big year, so I'm just going to go with Minnesota plus the 9. I have other strong weeks. My lock is a strong week. I look for the weak teams laying 30 points, but I like to go with the Minnesota game here. I just think it'll be a close game, and Minnesota can cover with the 9. They can win the game. again, I just don't feel they'll be flat. I just think you have a real live dog. So there's two ways to bet. You look for the weak team to defense laying 30, lays 30 a game, and you just jump on them, and then you're out. You got a good offense. They're going to score 50. The other team's defense is so weak they're not going to do anything. Or you look at the hot team, like last week I had Illinois over Michigan State because they had beaten Wisconsin, and they beat Rutgers, and they beat Purdue, and I'm going, okay, Illinois is my team, and then they're down 28-3, and they win because they're getting confidence. They know how to win. There's no flat. They're terrible, but now all of a sudden they're getting pretty good, and they come all the way back and beat Michigan State, I was just shocked, actually. But I think you have that here with Minnesota. I think, are we really that good? And then we start winning. I think I'm more impressed the win at Fresno State early in the year. I locked Fresno State and won. Minnesota won by a field goal. I had 9. It's a very similar situation. So the only difference here is that the game's at Iowa, but they play Iowa every year. It's not like they've never seen them. And I just feel that take Minnesota plus the 9. I think you go with the momentum. They're 8-1 against the number, and I think it'll be a game in the 20s, 24-21. I don't know. They scored 30-something on. See, I'm judging the parallel. Penn State's a 10 defense. I mean, they give up 10 points a game, and they did beat Michigan, and they did have some good wins. Michigan State they beat, and I'm going, okay. Not that Michigan State's great, but they're a fairly good team. So I'm looking at it, and I'm saying, well, if they can put up 30 on that team, that's how I correlate. So I go, if they can do that to Penn State. See, if they just played Rutgers and New Mexico and crap teams, then you can't count anything. But the way they beat Penn State, who had beaten some good teams, so their defense was real in Iowa, and Minnesota scored on them. So don't be surprised if Minnesota gets the W here. Iowa's not. They've got 3 losses. I know they lost to Michigan, and I know they lost to Wisconsin, so they're losing to good teams. Don't get me wrong. And they barely beat a good Iowa State team who should have beat Oklahoma. Again, that was another one that I got Iowa State in like 20 points, and I'm sweating, and all of a sudden they're down 20, they're down 14, they're down 7, and they're going in to win. And I love Iowa State. They're such a good team. Anyway, back to this. Take Minnesota plus the 9. I'll have I'm seeing at least 10 games in college again. It's just such a the talent is the teams are known now. I know Ohio State in the beginning of the year. I made a bet. I got it right here, and the bet is I got Ohio State plus 3.5. You see that ticket? Ohio State plus 3.5. That's how unknown Ohio State. That's how unknown gambling is. This was done at the Venetian in July 4th. You're able to bet some games, and I saw the line, and I made a poke to the sportsbook manager, and I said, "You got the wrong team favored there." This is before the season. Everybody's on Michigan. I said, Ohio State owns them. They've won like 17 out of 18. There's no way Michigan should be favored by 3.5. And I bet the game, and he kind of made a smart ass comment back to me, and I go, you got the. I was like dead serious. You got the wrong line. You got the wrong team favored. So Ohio State should be at least a 7-point favorite. That's before you knew what was going on. But that's what I'm saying. So before the year, you don't know Ohio State, new coach, new quarterback. LSU came out with a total new offense. That's what I'm saying. So in the beginning, you don't know this stuff. Now you see it. You see who they beat, and you go, yeah, LSU Ohio State would be a real good national championship game. So that's what will happen. There's nobody There's nobody close to them. Clemson, I don't know. I mean, they don't play anybody. Alabama shouldn't even be in it. They don't play anybody. What's their argument? I hear on the radio, oh, they're the best one-loss team. And I'm like, who have they played? Who have they beaten? Oh, wait, they beat Ole Miss. They beat Tennessee. Oh, yeah, they're the best one-loss team. And I think it's just criminal that Oregon's a really good team, and this Minnesota, if they only lose to Ohio State, means they beat Iowa and Wisconsin. If it's a normal playoff like the NFL, you have 16 teams in this thing, then you get a real winner. So I don't know why everybody's so against it. It really makes no sense. There'd be a lot more money to go around if you didn't have 4 teams and you had this. And then the scheduling, you're rewarding Alabama and Clemson for playing nobody. And here's LSU. Look at Auburn's schedule. They had to play Florida and Georgia and LSU and Alabama and Oregon. And Alabama plays LSU and Auburn. And they don't play Florida or Georgia from the other side. Like, what the fuck is that? That's just terrible. All right, anybody, good luck. I don't know if you're waiting for me to get hot. I don't know what else you'd be waiting for. I'm nailing it. I'm nailing my locks. I'm nailing my strong picks. There's not. You can't just play my locks because I have a lot of strong picks. Like last week, Louisiana Lafayette, San Jose State, Illinois, Minnesota, and LSU. I mean, I had 5 strong plays, and then I locked the pro, and then in the pros I go 9-1. Like, you can't just. The lock's a good play, but there's other strong plays that I have, and so you've got to look at the whole board with me, and then play the ones that I have in multiple teasers stronger, because those I kind of have that sixth sense feel about going, yeah, LSU's going to beat Alabama, and I'm putting them in 3 teasers, and that's what I did, and I knew they weren't going to lose getting 13 points. There's no way LSU was going to lose that game with 13. I thought they would win, and I told you Tagliavolia had his hurt knee, and it's a month recovery. So you've got to understand that. But there was no way they were going to lose by 13. Anyway, so when I get games like that and feels like that, and like Seattle, Monday night was a lock, San Diego. Against Oakland, you have a weak favorite in Oakland, and San Diego, who covers as a road dog all the time. Those are beautiful locks. But that's what you want to take advantage of. You're going to play my strong plays with the locks. You got 5 or 6 team teaser, boom, easy W, and you're getting good odds with that. So be cognizant. I'm on fire. My one friend calls me the wizard. When I get on fire, he says, "What are you, a wizard? You pick all these games?" Well, the wizard's here. He stopped by and he's came over to see me. So anyway, good luck. www.teaserking.com. If this is, if you're waiting for me to get hot, I don't know what to tell you, because these last 2 weeks were heaven, and this college week's no problem, and the pros, I got 1 lock, and I'm waiting on quarterbacks to play that, but I'll talk about that in the pro video. Okay, everybody, good luck, and have a great week. Thank you.